Delighted to welcome the Labour MP and Shadow Foreign Secretary Lisa Nandy to the show right now. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Obviously, there's an awful lot going on in terms of Brexit, in terms of Navalny, the Russian opposition leader and the like. However, you know, an awful lot of focus today is on the virus and the government's handling of the pandemic. We're being told that Christmas could be cancelled. We're only allowed 6 people in our homes or outside our homes to mix with. We could have restrictions until March. What was your reaction when you saw that press conference and saw the latest restrictions on our daily lives to last probably through much of winter?
Well, I think the Prime Minister is right to say that we need further restrictions. We've seen a rise in cases around the country, huge rises in some parts of the country. Bolton, which is next door to me here in Wigan, has seen a very rapid rise in infections and has now got some of the toughest lockdown restrictions in the country. And I think the overwhelming priority has to be to keep people safe. But we also need much more clarity from the government about what people are meant to be doing. We had the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, saying only a few days ago that people should go and get a test if they need one. It's emerged that there are real problems with the testing system and many people just can't get one at all. And then you've got the government overnight saying that they're going to move us to 10 million tests a day when people can't even currently get one. I think we need an element of realism about this. People do need to know that they should go and get tested, and we need some honesty about the problems in the system and a proper plan to fix it.
Well, we keep being told, we're going to get world beating this and world beating that. And a lot of people would, just like something that basically function. We have seen people being told to go hundreds of miles to get a test when actually there's a centre nearby. Told to get tests, then told too many people are getting tests. Now we've got this prospect of what's called this moonshot. The idea that we could have something that costs pretty much the budget of the annual budget of the NHS, £100 billion, to have people tested, millions of us every week or even every day when you go into the theatre or go into the workplace. Do you think that's even a remote possibility that that's going to happen in the next, few months, 6 months, year?
Well, there's no reason why the UK shouldn't be in a position to start mass testing people. There are other countries that have done it. South Korea's been doing it since February. And in the end, having a proper test, trace and isolate scheme that is functioning properly is the way through this. It's the way that we're going to contain the public health crisis and get the economy to start opening up in more significant ways. So the Prime Minister is right to aim for it. The problem is the disconnect between where we are now and where we need to get to, and the fact that they don't even seem to acknowledge the problems in the system at the moment. The plans that they briefed out overnight seem to replicate a lot of the existing problems in the system. They don't seem to involve public health directors or local councils who need to know where COVID cases are in their areas so they can make decisions about local lockdowns. They seem to be giving contracts to the same private companies that have presided over a system that isn't working well enough at the moment. I think before the government goes off to try and bring on 10 million tests a day at the cost of 100 billion, they need to learn the lessons from the problems that have emerged already and start to put them right.
Well, let's go more into your brief as Shadow Foreign Secretary. Of course, we've got obviously ongoing issues about Brexit, and we're in the eighth round of those Brexit EU trade talks with the EU. We've had the publication yesterday of the Internal Markets Bill when the government's been accused of breaching an international treaty. Indeed, a government minister admitted that it would have breached international law, but only in a very specific and limited way. Do you agree with Sir John Major, the former Prime Minister, who said yesterday this is going to damage Britain's standing on the world stage?
I do agree with him. I actually think it already has. I speak to world counterparts all the time in my current brief, and the world is just watching us with utter astonishment about
do
why
they really
the
care
UK
about
would do this. Yes, they do, for a number of reasons. I mean, firstly, because the UK is currently trying to persuade countries right across the world, not just the EU, to do trade deals with us. And it's very difficult for those countries to believe that they could trust the UK not to go back on its word now that the government has made this threat. It's also because the world is becoming an increasingly unsafe, unstable place. You've got a very assertive Chinese government with serious implications for the people of Hong Kong. You've got the Russian government that is behaving in a way that the Foreign Secretary described as pure gangsterism recently, and serious issues in Iran. We've been lecturing those countries rightly about the need to uphold international law and abide by international standards. I think the world is really dismayed that Britain seems to have taken that approach itself, when we should be standing up for the rule of law and holding others to account and making sure that we make the world a safer place.
Lots of people would perhaps argue back, Brexiteers like myself, that the EU doesn't have and many of those countries don't have a very strong record on that front, and actually it's the EU that's been breaching the deal themselves by not, I suppose, negotiating in good faith. But let me end on some good news this morning. Yes, there is some. The Putin critic and opposition leader Alexei Navalny has, we're told, been conscious and has actually been able to speak again after his poisoning by Novichok, the chemical agent, of course, used in the Salisbury attack a couple of years ago. This is according to reports in the German media, where, of course, he's being cared for in a German hospital. Your reaction to that, and also just what action you think that we do need to take against the Russian authorities over their repeated use of chemical weapons like this?
Well, I mean, I think we need to be really clear that this behaviour is completely unacceptable. The Foreign Secretary summoned the Russian ambassador to see him. I think that was the right thing to do. But we need to go further than that. We've just introduced legislation in this country that allows us to sanction officials who are involved in this sort of behaviour in other countries, so that we can freeze their assets. You'll know from the Russia report that the UK has been regarded as a safe haven for Russian money, blood money, as the Foreign Secretary called it. And many of those donations as well have permeated the political system, including to the highest levels of the Conservative Party. I think we should be imposing sanctions on those Russian officials, and I think we should tighten up our regime so that we're not just sanctioning for a very limited number of offences, but for corruption as well. The government has so far been reluctant to do it. We will be pushing them to do it. There have got to be actual real world consequences for actions like this. We saw a poisoning on the streets of the UK. It's an extraordinarily aggressive act, and the world cannot stand by and allow this behaviour to go unchecked.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us. Great to speak to you, Labour MP and Shadow Foreign Secretary there, Lisa Nandy. Really appreciate that indeed.